Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Are you currently in the market for a shipping container? Or how about two? Well, if you are, you know it's a pretty daunting process. A lot of questions, a lot of things you need to consider before you buy one of these. For the amount of money you put into them, you want to make sure you get what you're looking for and that they're going to do what you need them to do. So in this video, I'm going to go through the process of what we did when we purchased these two containers and had them put in our yard. I'll cover the cost by the end of the video, and hopefully I'll help answer some of the questions you might have on purchasing a shipping container. Now, obviously, the most important consideration is, what are you going to be using these containers for? That question is important for a number of reasons. One, containers come in different grades. Let's call it A, B, and C, A being the best, C being the worst. They also come in different lengths and different heights. Now, typically, containers will come in 10, 20, and 40-foot lengths, but there are other lengths and sizes available. They do come in two different heights. In the case of this 40-foot, called a high cube, which is 9 feet 6 inches high, whereas a typical container will be 8 feet 6 inches high. So a foot less. Now, all containers are 8 feet wide. Now, since the majority of containers are made in China, they all have to be shipped over here. The only difference between the A, B, and C containers is that the A container, being considered a new container, only takes one trip over here before being sold as an empty container, where the B container may take several trips back and forth before ultimately staying stateside and being sold as a shipping container. These containers are typically still certified to be used for shipping, but are instead being sold as containers and can still be put back into service or can be used for some other use. The sea-level container, which is what we got here, is called the wind and watertight containers. Now, these are going to be the probably most beat up in the sense that they've taken several trips back and forth over, who knows, years or decades. And while these are not still certified to be used for shipping containers, they are considered wind and watertight. And generally speaking, they say with minor repairs can be put back into use as a shipping container. Wind and watertight, or sea containers, as I just mentioned, will have some cosmetic injuries, I guess you'd say, scars. And typically, there's no light going through. They're all been sealed if they've had any holes in them. This one doesn't seem to have. But as you can see, the containers themselves tend to be a little more used and a little more rusty. And have had some repairs done to them in some cases. So while wind and watertight containers may not be the most visually attractive in your yard, depending on your use, if that doesn't bother you, they're definitely going to give you the best bang for your buck. Now, once you've determined what size and grade or condition container you need for your project or purpose, the next step will be to find a company that can deliver it for you. Like most product searches these days, once you type in a word looking for something, you're going to get inundated with all types of advertisements for that particular product. Same situation with this. Once we started reaching out for and searching for shipping containers, we started getting a lot of advertisements, some with pricing and contact information. At that point, we reached out, told them what we were looking for, in our case, 2 40-foot high cube wind and watertight containers, and with a little additional information, a zip code and an address, we were able to get some pretty good quotes. Now, one of those advertisements that I saw was for a 40-foot wind and watertight high cube container for, I think it was $2,300 a piece. That's without any shipping information or estimate. I reached out to the company or the salesperson and asked them for a quote on 2 40-foot high cube wind and watertight containers delivered to our address. they quickly got back to me with a price of, I believe it was $5,400. This price seemed pretty good, considering that all the other prices I was seeing on the internet were quite a bit higher than their price. Now, we all know the best price doesn't necessarily mean the best deal. And after doing a little bit more research on this particular company and not feeling real comfortable with what I was finding with regard to their phone number was a UK phone number, their address was a Midwest address, and once I did a Google search on that particular address, I found a empty warehouse in the middle of nowhere, farmland, with no shipping containers anywhere in sight. Granted, this could have been an older photo and maybe something's changed since then and they're a legitimate company. But when it came down to the payment part, that was the other thing that I really had to think about, because what I found was some companies were willing to take credit card, debit card, bank check. Other companies were willing to take those three processes, plus they offered a payment process. If you qualified, you could make payments to them. In addition, I found one or two companies, one which we ended up going with, which accepted cash on delivery. Now, even though the $5,400 quote for the 2 containers was the best price I got, I was not real comfortable with sending that amount of cash, not being able to do or get that much information about the company itself. Ultimately, the company we ended up doing business with had many reviews on the internet, and they even had many customers doing videos. They have a promotion where if you do a video for them after the fact of the sale, they'll give you an additional $100 to $200 off. This is a special they run on and off. I was offered it. In this case, you could physically see them getting their containers delivered by this company and talking about the particular company that we ended up purchasing our container from. Now, the other thing you're going to need to consider when you're having these things delivered is, do you have the room for them? The company is going to tell you what they expect and what they need. And for example, in our case, we had to have double the amount of space for this container so that once it was unloaded from the trailer, they could pull forward and then be able to back out and get up the driveway. Once we had this one in place, it was a little more complicated because I don't have a whole lot of room to pull forward in the yard right here. And he also had to be able to back out and get around the end of the container on this end. So one of the things you're going to want to consider is your location. And again, the company is going to be able to tell you what they need for landing site and for delivery space. Okay, so with that said, what did we end up paying for these 2 40-foot wind and watertight high cube containers? Well, the containers themselves were $2,600 a piece, and shipping was $756 a piece, which came to $6,712. And we get a St. Patrick discount, which they seem to be pretty liberal with their discounts if you get them at the right time. And the total ended up being $6,412 for 2 shipping containers, and came out to $3,206 a piece. So that was the final cost to get our 2 shipping containers delivered here to our homestead. And we learned quite a bit from the process. Hopefully some of this information will help some of you. Don't hesitate to leave any questions or comments down below. I'll be glad to help you with what I can. And I will be doing the next video on the company that we purchased these 2 from, and let you know who that was, and let them know that we are happy with our purchase. Talk to you next time. Thanks.